It just wasn't working for me. In the same way that I thought it should work, because I thought, well, like I said, I thought music photography and shooting sports can't be that different. They're not particularly well lit a lot of the time, and there's fast action. So what can be the difference? But it turns out I learned very quickly that there's a huge difference. In fact, it almost has nothing to do with the other. And so I had to make equipment choices, and I also had to learn how to use my equipment in a different way. In order to get those shots.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's right. I mean, the gear matters, and we know that. And people say, well, isn't it the photographer? Well, sure, you'd like to say it's all, but no. I mean, the gear that we have now is so exciting. I mean, there's just so much out there that we could utilize to make better pictures that we were never able to make before. And people are like, oh, the good old days when there was film and manual focus, those were real photographers. Yeah, those were really good photographers, but I'm sure happy to have autofocus, and really good autofocus. So, to me, technology is allowing us to make pictures that, wow, you couldn't make before. I mean, and it's exciting. And the technology also does so much of the technical job for you if you take the time to learn it. So then you're free to frame, compose, and create things that you couldn't. If you're worried about making sure it's in focus, well, that's taking up a majority of your time. But if you don't have to worry about that, and now you're just, what do you want it to look like? Where do you want to frame and compose? Just incredible. And then, of course, in sports photography, the amount of times that you're able to capture an athlete at his or her peak moment certainly increases with the technology that was out there.
Big time. So, I've noticed this. This is part of my learning curve. Let's say in shooting boxing events. I remember when I first started shooting boxing events, I shot a DSLR, and I'd come home and I'd load my shots up, and I'd say maybe 40% or something of the shots there was something wrong with them. Either missed focus or something wasn't. It's usually focus issues. And that was fine. That was just something I sort of took into consideration, and that was just how it was. Cool. Then eventually I switched to mirrorless, and I shoot Nikon. So Nikon's mirrorless technology is actually, the autofocus technology has come a long way since the days of DSLRs. And I have to say, my issue now is I don't really have many shots to weed out. It's like out of the, let's say, 4,000 shots that I've shot, literally 3,990 are in focus. And it really like, oh shit, that's a lot of shots I have to go. It was so easy to just, weed them out earlier. Now,
it's so different thing. I was just talking to my friend Kayla, and she works with Sony, and I said to her, God, we were talking about the new A9 III, and it shoots 120 frames per second. Do we need 120 frames per second all the time? Of course not. But do I want that? You bet I want that. Why wouldn't I want that for when I need it? And I said, the job is becoming a better editor, because you upped your game, right? So it's learning how to be a better editor. And I've learned how to be a better editor over the years. I've had somebody incredible teaching me. This guy, Steve Fine, who worked for Sports Illustrated for years, and he was the photo editor there and head of photography. And, you have to know what a picture is and what it isn't. And he's so fast. He's still, of course, much faster than me. And having somebody else edit your pictures, that is not emotionally connected to them, really helps you. Somebody hands it back to you and says, this is the best one, and here's why. And I know you like that one because you worked so hard to get it, but it doesn't make it the best picture. You just remember how hard you worked to get it. But so all of the things that it takes. And now, I'm so fast. And now as I was shooting with these new cameras, I know I've got to edit quickly. I got to move along. And it doesn't matter that I have 100 frames of this shot. There's still only one peak one. There's one best one. There's one athlete at his or her peak moment. And do you know which one that is? And getting good at that and being able to get fast at it. It's fun. It's a new fun part of the job.
Yeah.
Or not new,
How
but better at it.
how much editing goes into the images that you deliver? Does any editing go into it?
Well, I mean, I'm going through my takes as fast as I can. I mean, I was just in the Dominican Republic, and I'm going from one shoot to another. I'm putting my card in and sitting in the back of a car and actually going through my take and and I do ones and twos for what I'm going to keep and moving along to the next one. And it's great to be getting, fast at it. You don't want to make mistakes, so you can only go as fast as, you're capable of going. And then just delivering, if I make an adjustment, it might be a little batch adjustment before I send, maybe I have to pick up the shadows a little bit or, pump up a little bit of, something that it needs, but we'll bring down highlights or whatever it is that, but it's quick, and sports photography is quick, delivering is quick, and then I'll spend a little more time on something that might go into like on my website, that you want to take more time. You don't want to just throw stuff up there. So you'll take a little bit more time with those photos in your archives and you have some more time to work with them.
But that's certainly one major mistake I made. Again, at the very beginning when I first started shooting boxing, it was like, I was so nervous about delivering the shots, and so I went into editing overkill, and it was stupid. And I spent days, and I can't remember how many. Maybe I delivered, I don't know, maybe 800 shots or something like that. That was the gig, so somewhere in that region anyway. And I spent days painstakingly editing them. And of course now, 4 years later, my workflow is completely different. Like there is no such thing as like individual shot image editing. It's all batched up.
But it's fun to remember that you did that. I mean, we all did that, right? Going through, taking forever, not being sure, and then individually like trying to like make. And you can't do that. But cropping, I crop really fast too, because, cropping is part of sports photography. So, you crop in, you can make something better, you get tighter into the action, and whatever long lens you have, the great thing is these files are nice and big. So we're able to crop in and make something, make a more impactful photo after the photo is taken. So everybody says crop in the camera. And yes, you crop in the camera, you should frame and compose properly. But I'll crop in for impact, for sure, after the fact.
And again, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've developed certain workflows over the years that just make it easy for me to. Basically, I batch because I have to deliver in 7x5s. That's the requirement for this particular gig. So I batch crop the whole shebang, and then since I sort of do a super quick edit in Lightroom, what I do is I keep the crop tool open, and I just use a graphics tablet and I literally just make a super quick crop adjustment and then flick immediately onto the next picture. So I don't have to come in and out of the crop tool every time because I figure it's like. If I've got to deliver 800 shots on average, sometimes anywhere between 600 and 1,000, I guess, depending on the event, even one click on the graphics tablet, for example, or one move multiplied by 1,000 takes a lot of time, So if I can minimize that and just make that as straightforward and simple as possible, I actually save myself a lot of time. And so, I probably spend a couple of hours on a job like that now rather than days. And that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And it sounds like you got your system down. You can't spend, whoever the client is, they're not paying you for days of editing.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And you got to move on and go to the next thing and know you're delivering, a good product to them. But I was thinking of something that you talked about being a musician and us having bad days. There's also my friend Steve. I talk about my friend Steve a lot because he's giving me so much. But he also, there'll be times when I'm shooting day after day after day after day, and then like I just don't see it, and I'm like really struggling and have a bad shoot. And it may not be a technical problem. It may just be a me problem. Like it may just be. And he said, there's sometimes when you got to just put the camera down. And I would think that as a musician, like for you, like sometimes you just got to put the guitar down. Like, if you're like, and just give yourself that rest of like, okay, I'm just not seeing it. I'm not hearing it. I'm not bringing it today. Give yourself that break, and if you can, put it down and just give yourself a rest and, give yourself a day or two or whatever it is before you pick up the guitar again, before you pick up the camera again.